All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Empowered Esquire TV. Now, I promised you two lives this week, and as promised, here I am. We are live today and tomorrow. So, today on the docket, on our list of topics, we have Dr. Dre's divorce and the pending spousal support. And we also have some new accusations against R.Kelly, and if we have time, we'll get into some more stuff that we didn't get into last time, including Richard Sherman and some other things in the like. So for us to go ahead and get started, let me begin by saying this. Copyright disclaimer. Yes, I'm saying this. Under Section 107 of the Copyright Act of 1976, allowance is made for fair use for purposes such as criticism, comment, news reporting, teaching, scholarship, and research. Fair use is a use permitted by copyright statute that might otherwise be infringing. In other words, it covers actions that may otherwise be interpreted as infringement. Nonprofit, educational, or personal use tips the balance in favor of fair use. All right, now that we got that out of the way, I am going to share my screen, and to allow everyone to come on into the room, we're going to watch a very interesting video about one of the properties owned by Dr. Dre, being that we will be discussing divorce law and property division during a divorce, including how this process probably happened in Dr. Dre's divorce.
He's one of the biggest recording artists of all time and has very successfully branched out into a music producer and businessman. With all his achievements comes all that money. As such, Dr. Dre has splashed out millions of dollars on a number of stunning properties. But one in Brentwood might just be the most expensive one he's bought. Today, we're going to take a deep delve into the amazing mansion and its illustrious former owners. We'll also see some of the recent properties Dre has added to his portfolio. We'll even look at a couple of famous faces that have also moved to Brentwood. So let's get started. In 2014, the American rapper and entrepreneur known as Dr. Dre purchased a new mansion in Brentwood, Los Angeles. He actually bought it from Tom Brady and Gisele Bündchen for a hefty $40 million. They originally purchased the land back in 2008 for $11.75 million and began building the mansion we see today. It's estimated the house cost them $20 million to build, giving them a grand total of $31.75 million invested into the project. So they did sell it for a tidy profit, yet the house was on the market for a year before Dre stepped in. Originally, Brady and Bündchen wanted $50 million, so Dre got a nice deal with $10 million off the asking price. In January 2021, Dre was admitted to the hospital after suffering with a brain aneurysm. Only hours after arriving, a group of complete and total losers tried to burgle the Brentwood mansion, and they got caught, so they're double losers. After getting over the fence, they couldn't get inside the building. 4 people arrested for the attempt. You lose. Back to Dre's glamorous, rich life. Currently, Dre is said to have amassed a net worth of $820 million. Along with his incredible career in music, Dre also amassed his fortune from the headphones Beats by Dre. The company behind the headphones, Beats Electronics, was eventually sold as part of a deal with Apple in 2014 for $3 billion. Yeah, that'll help you be a little rich. So with all that cash, let's take a look at his stunning Brentwood mansion. Sat within 4 acres of the estate, the mansion itself is contained within 18,298 square feet of living space at the time of its purchase. Since then, it's undergone renovations to match Dre and his family's tastes, as well as significantly boost its valuation. Originally designed by architect Richard Landry, the house has 5 bedrooms and 9 bathrooms. The master bedroom even has a balcony with a bath. The doors throughout the property are even antiques. Most homes might have 1 fireplace, but not this one. Instead, it has 7. One of the other fun features is a home sauna. Oh, if you're wondering about getting one for yourself, it can be a pricey purchase. The cost can be between $2,000 and up to $10,000. And depending on whether the sauna uses infrared, wood, or electric electrical heat sources, the monthly price can be between $15 and $40. Other features include a den, a media room, a wine cellar, a library, and a gym, the latter of which can cost as little as $500 to create a home gym, but you probably knew that. But depending on the size or type of equipment bought, it can be as much as $28,000 according to experts. Almost immediately after purchasing the mansion, rumors began to circulate that Dre was looking to build something huge underground. Plans provided to the Los Angeles city authorities suggested that a huge basement, nearly the size of a whole mansion, was going to be dug out. There were theories that Dre could be creating a basement of some kind, or even a bunker for extra security, but the actual plan was a 10,000 square foot recording studio, or as Dre would call, a lab. Besides being a rapper, Dre is known for his work as a music producer. According to experts, the cost of building a professional recording studio can start at $150,000 and go well into the millions. Outside the Brentwood mansion sits an infinity pool, a cabana, a pond, and a waterfall. There's also a moat that surrounds the property to give it a more Middle Ages vibe, or in 2021 we just call it a rich people vibe. Connected to the pond, the moat is filled with koi fish. Depending on the species and pedigree, a single koi fish can cost as much as $16,000. For a fish. Oh, thankfully, there's a permanent bridge across the moat to get into the house, because we were worried about getting in. One of the biggest focuses when the house was being built was that it would be eco-friendly. As such, it comes with solar panels that provide the building with electricity. There's also a gray water irrigation system around the grounds. Even the materials are more environmentally friendly since most of them were reclaimed. The outside also has a cobblestone motor court. Dre will be able to look after his car collection since the garage has space for 6 vehicles. The Brentwood mansion isn't the only time Dre has dropped millions for a home in Los Angeles. During 1999, a property in the Woodland Hills area came onto the market. Dre ended up purchasing it for $2.35 million. The 3-story house has 8 ensuite bedrooms with 13 bathrooms. In order to traverse these 3 stories, there's a lift. The 16,200 square foot abode also has a wine cellar that can hold up to 250 bottles of wine. There's also a home gym that kept Dre in top shape for 20 years. The house even holds an Olympic-sized saltwater swimming pool and a 150-gallon fish tank. Tanks of that size can cost between $1,500 and $7,000, and that's before adding in all the fish. Other features include a home cinema, a guest house, a study and library, a security suite, and an indoor hot tub. In 2019, Dre put the house on the market in order to free up some funds for another house purchase, which we'll come and do shortly. In the same year, the Woodland Hills mansion was sold for $4.5 million, a drop from the original asking price of $5.25 million. 2019 was a big year for Dre in the real estate market, as once more he expanded his portfolio. After putting the Woodland Hills mansion on the market, he went and purchased a new one in Pacific Palisades, LA. The Mediterranean-style house has 3,100 square feet of living space and overlooks the Pacific Ocean within a gated community. The 2-story building has 4 bedrooms and 4 bathrooms. The terraced patio provides further views of the nearby mountains, along with 2 fire pits to keep warm in the evening. The master suite is big enough to contain a sitting area, a balcony with sliding glass doors, and a fireplace. The house was originally built in 1997 and was purchased by Dre for $2.25 million, which really doesn't seem that expensive. Wait, what? Brentwood is a prime location for the rich and famous. As such, Dre has some big-name neighbors, one of which is NBA icon LeBron James. The current LA Lakers player has purchased 2 houses in Brentwood. The first was bought in 2015 for $20.1 million. The 9,440 square foot estate was only built in 2011. It has 6 bedrooms and 8 bathrooms. The second Brentwood property was bought during 2017 for $23 million. This mansion has nearly double the amount of space at 15,846 square feet, which might be why it cost a few more million. This property comes with 8 bedrooms and 11 bathrooms, only built during the same year in 2017. It also has a wine cellar, a cigar room, a cinema, a wet bar, a rooftop terrace, a gym, a swimming pool, and a spa. Stop! Another famous face in the Brentwood neighborhood is the Oscar winner Reese Witherspoon. In December 2020, news broke, breaking news, about her new mansion in the area. In reality, she purchased it back in March 2020. The English country-style house has 7 ensuite bedrooms and 9 bathrooms. With 9,504 square feet of living space and 3 acres altogether, the house is one of the most secluded properties in the area. Built in 1993, the property also comes with a saltwater swimming pool and spa, an outdoor fireplace and kitchen, and specific rooms for live-in staff. All of this cost $16 million altogether. This isn't the only Brentwood property to be in Witherspoon's possession. Back in 2003, she spent $4.7 million on an estate. In 2009, she bought the adjacent property for $3.3 million. She then spent a further $3 million on another nearby property, all in order to create a big compound for $11 million. In 2014, they ended up putting it all on the market for $14 million, but it didn't sell. So they split up the properties once more, and they eventually sold the mansion for around $10 million and the land for $3.5 million. Final fact finish, Dre will need to spend over double the amount he splashed on his Brentwood house to be the rapper with the most expensive house. I don't know if they're really going for that title. That title currently belongs to Jay-Z and Beyonce. In 2017, they purchased a huge modern mansion in Bel Air, Los Angeles, all for a price of a staggering $88 million. Thanks for joining us today. We'll see you next time.
All right, everyone. So let me go ahead and get on out of here. Gonna stop sharing. Let me do my hellos in the chat. All righty. Hi, KKC. Hi, Rev. Hi, Black Girl Beauty. Hi, Diva, Divine Light. Hi, Crime Spotter. Hello, Michelle Jordan. Oh, I see someone new rocking with the truth. Hello. Let's see. I'm scrolling. I think I said hi, Crime Spotter, but if I didn't, hi, Crime Spotter. Hey, take R.Kelly. Scrolling. Hi, Indigo Forever. Hi, Karen J. Hi, Livy J. All right. And hi, Mertrice. So I think I've made my way through the chat. If you want, your little hello, just drop a line in the chat. And as you enter the live, as my wonderful mod KKC said, please give the video a thumbs up. So for our intro, we saw a video about Dr. Dre's property, right? Notice that they talk about how much money was spent to acquire his current home, and they discussed that it was a $40 million purchase price. But keep in mind, purchase price does not equate to worth, right? So just because you spent $40 million on a home, right, that does not mean the home is worth $40 million. It could be upwards of 50, 60 million plus, depending on how much money he put into the home after he bought it. Okay, so for our first topic today, let's talk about Dr. Dre's divorce. For those of you who do not know, Dr. Dre is recently divorced. His wife was awarded approximately $300,000 per month in spousal support. Now, there's been a big splash about that, right? But I want us all to remember that spousal support is separate and apart from property division. It's also separate and apart from child support, right? So she is also receiving, more than likely, many other assets in this divorce other than just this ongoing spousal support, right? So for those of you who have been here before, you know that I like to make you a little what I call cheat sheet, where I outline the law for you. So I do have a little article that I queued up regarding Dr. Dre's regarding Dr. Dre's current real estate portfolio. We'll take a look at that very quickly, and then we'll delve into the law. Hello to K Business Podcast. Hi, Truth Strong Warrior. And hi, Sharice OCOV. All right, let me share my screen. The article is titled, Dr. Dre owns $80 million in real estate. Let's get into it. All right, so Dr. Dre owns $80 million in real estate, but where does he live now? With over $80 million in real estate in Los Angeles alone, Dr. Dre is putting a number of his homes up on the market. Interesting. So for those of you who are unaware, when a divorce proceeding starts, initially, everything is frozen, right? Initially. But usually as division begins, certain assets will be sold so that the proceeds can be divided amongst the two spouses, okay? All right, so they go in to talk about Dr. Dre being very, very talented and successful, but here's the part that we need. He is one of the wealthiest men in music with a net worth of a whopping $820 million. Pause. Let's have a little teaching moment. If someone is worth $820 million, Does that mean they actually have $820 million in the bank? Let's do a little survey, shall we? If Dr. Dre is worth 820 million, does that mean he actually has 820 million? If you think that's the money he actually has in his possession, that's the liquid cash he has, put a Y in the chat. If you think that it's a combination of some other numbers, put a N in the chat. So why, if you think that he actually has 820 million in his, in his pocket right now to spend, or N if you think, no, that's a combination of a lot of different numbers. Okay, all righty. So per usual, you guys are on point per usual. So $820 million in net worth does not mean he actually has 820 in the bank. It's a combination of all of his assets, and also net worth does not usually take into account debt. So you have to also keep that in mind, because there's a bunch of depreciating assets such as vehicles and things like that that could be considered in your net worth, but no one is really considering your debt when they're talking about net worth. So he could be worth 820 million, and 10 million of that could be vehicles that are depreciating, and he could have hundreds of millions of dollars in debt. All right, let's continue. It was revealed earlier this month that Dr. Dre and his wife of nearly 25 years, Nicole Young, are divorcing. So this was back in July of 2020. So remember what I said about initially all of the assets are frozen, but then things start to go up for sale when it's time to divide them? This makes sense, right? All of this sale was happening during the divorce proceedings, okay? So they go on to discuss the fact that Dr. Dre has over $80 million in real estate in Los Angeles alone. Pause. So that means that when Nicole Young filed for divorce in Los Angeles alone, they had $80 million worth of real estate to divide amongst the two of them. Interesting. They then go again into his net worth, right? They talk about how Beats by Dre was sold to Apple ultimately. And then they get into the divorce. Now, here are some interesting things for us to note as well. So we see that Dr. Dre married Nicole Young back in 1996. Okay, so I'm actually going to pull up a calculator here, right? Because we want to make sure that this is as accurate could be. So she filed for divorce in 2020. They got married in 1996. 24 years of marriage. Now, people, that is important. Here's why. In many states, including the state of California, how long you are married to someone determines what standard of living you are held to. And if you've been married to someone for a substantial amount of time, the court will interpret that as, well, you're used to a certain standard of living, and you're more likely to be able to overcome prenuptial agreements. You're also more likely to get higher spousal support payments. So being married for 24 years definitely guarantees her to that higher standard of life support payment. It also says they have 2 children, right? We are going to slightly touch on child support, but I believe that their children are over 18. I'll double check on that, but I believe so, okay? They then go on to say that reportedly there was not a prenup, okay? And they do clarify that both of the children are above the age of 18. Okay, so I think that is, oh, you know what? Actually, let's discuss this little portion here and then we'll hop on out of here. So they mention that, oh, no. That's one of the old homes. We're going to skip past this. Let's hop into it now, you guys. Alrighty, so we are going to hop into California state law on spousal support and property division. But before we do, I want to say hello to Nettie Boo and hello to Money to Burn. And also ask everyone in the chat, do you have any questions for me before I dive into the law? Because y'all know me. Once I get into the law and I get started, we're going to be, on a roll. So if you have any kind of factual questions that you think I could answer, Let me know now. Do, 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 do. Shout out to Crime Spotter. I still don't have the countdown, but I'm working on it. Do, do, do. Okay. I don't see any questions. So we're going to hop into the law. All right. I am going to share my screen. You guys, is it just me? Or are you guys ever like kind of on edge when you share your screen? Like, oh my goodness, did I leave open any private email or anything? I'm like constantly paranoid about it. Just constantly checking to make sure that, I don't have something like my social security number up in a tab. Dear goodness. All right. So entire screen. Let's get into it. Here we go. Here is a cheat sheet I've created for you all. So in the state of California, they have the California Family Code. That is what they call the law that governs marriage, divorce, child support, and all those things there in between, right? Now, I see in the chat some wants to know. Michelle Jordan would like to know, how long is one required to pay spousal support? In this instance, in Dr. Dre's case, the court has ordered that he pay until she remarries. Okay. And that's not always the case, but in this instance, it is. And again, that goes back to how long she was married to him, because the court is interpreting that after 24 years of marriage, she's so accustomed to this amazing lifestyle that she should not have to go back to that unless she finds another husband. That's the logic there. Okay. So California Family Code, Section 4320. This is the section of the California Code that governs spousal support. And we are going to talk about what the court considered when they decided whether or not Nicole Young should get support and how much money she should get. KKC says, so the spousal support is temporary. Yes, technically it is temporary, but remember, it only goes away if she remarries. If she remarries. So if she never does, if she never finds another spouse, she gets that support indefinitely. Hello, Keep the Truth. Thank you for the compliment. All right, let's dig in. In ordering spousal support under this part, the court shall consider all of the following circumstances. A, the extent to which the earning capacity of each party is sufficient to maintain the standard of living established during the marriage. Pause. So what does that mean practically? Well, here is what that means on a practical basis. If Nicole Young were in some way equivalent to Dr. Dre, right? So let's imagine, we're in a parallel universe where Nicole Young is CEO of Young Athletics, and she has this amazing athletic clothing line, and she is also on her own worth almost $1 billion. Well, then guess what? The court would take that into consideration and would probably say, we don't really think you need the spousal support to maintain the standard of living that you're used to, because you are taking in a good amount of income on your own, right? So remember that, because again, Nicole Young did not have, to our knowledge, a large source of income of her own. Then they go into the marketable skills of the supported party, the job market for those skills, the time and expenses required for the supported party to acquire the appropriate education or training to develop those skills, and the possible need for retraining or education to acquire other more marketable skills or employment. All right, now here's another moment. So what does that mean? Because it's a lot of gerbil. Here's what it means. Does the spouse who's asking for support have some way of making money on his or her own? And the reason why the court considers this is because, as you all may know, usually when a husband and wife have children and the husband is of a certain financial prowess, you'll find that the wife really puts her career and other things on the back burner to care for the children. So the court views that as, well, we have to take that into consideration. We cannot leave this woman kind of hung out to dry when the reason that she stopped working and stopped developing her working skills is because she was caring for children. So the court considers, well, does Nicole Young have some way to go out and make money on her own? Is she capable? is there a world in which she really could go out and get a job? Okay. Second, the extent to which the supported party's present or future earning capacity is impaired by periods of unemployment. Here we go again, right? That were incurred during the marriage to permit the supported party to devote time to domestic duties. Again, replay my last statement, but add that the reason, well, another reason the court considers this is because the law views support in the home as support for the household. So the court says to themselves, okay, well, because Nicole Young was at home taking care of the children, Dr. Dre was able to work more. So really, she's entitled to a part of what he worked for. That's how the court views it. Okay? All righty. Woo, quite a bit. We're going to have to fly through some of this. I'm in the chat taking a look at if anyone has questions. Hi to T.Y. Roll. How's it going? And hi to Star. All right. B, the extent to which the supported party contributed to the attainment of an education, training, career, or license by the supporting party. Nope. That's not applicable here. That also, oh, well, this is applicable. The ability of the supporting party to pay spousal support, taking into account the supporting party's earning capacity, right? So they took into account Dr. Dre's ability to pay support. Okay. The needs of each party based on the standard of living established during the marriage. As we discussed, when one of the spouses is so wealthy, you develop a really high standard of living during the marriage, and the court is going to consider that. Obligations and assets, that's the norm. The duration of the marriage, remember I said earlier, 24 years of marriage, you guys. The court is going to consider that. 24 years of marriage gets you spousal support. 2 years of marriage, probably not. The ability of the supported party to engage in gainful employment. Again, can she go out and take care of herself? The age and health of the parties. Pause for a moment, you all. Believe it or not, Nicole Young's age is relevant here, because the world views your working age as, well, not necessarily just your working age, but really your marketable working age. The world views your marketable working age as pretty much ending by the time you hit your 40s, right? There has been a number of psychological studies that have proven that companies do not like to hire people who are over the age of 35, who are into their 40s, unless they're highly educated, because they view it as, this person doesn't really have many more years to give me. Is it nice? No, but that's what it is. So the court considered that Nicole Young is no longer, a 20-something. They considered that. Domestic violence, which I don't, well, you know what? Actually, I think Nicole Young did allege some domestic violence-ish accusations, but we're not going to go there, okay? Tax consequences of each party, the hardships each party could face, okay? And then they say that it's their goal that if support is granted, it lasts for a reasonable amount of time, okay? Then they go into a general statement that the court can consider any other factors that the court determines are just and equitable. So really, that's the court's catch-all by which they can really consider anything that they like, okay? And I made a little note here so we don't forget, spousal support is separate and apart from property division and child support. So yes, Nicole Young is receiving spousal support, but that is not all she's getting in this divorce. That is separate from property division. All right, so let's stop sharing for a moment. I'm so used to the little stop sharing thing. There we go. I'm used to it popping up. All righty, so I'm going to answer some quick questions about spousal support in particular, and then we're going to hop into property division. All righty. So let me hop in the chat here. Hello to Hudson. I think I might have missed you earlier. Any questions about spousal support here? Any questions? Because we know that Nicole Young was granted $300,000 per month. Now, for those of you who are unaware, she was requesting something in the realm of $2 million a month, right? So let me put that in the chat. Consider that she requested. Oh, I hate that you guys have to hear that clickety clack of the keyboard. She requested $2 million, right? But she received $300,000 per month. Okay. So a lot of people are viewing this award of spousal support as a win, right? A lot of people are saying, wow, she took him to the cleaners. But I want you all to consider she was requesting millions per month, and she was only awarded less than $500,000 per month. So when you take into consideration what she was asking for versus what she was awarded, I'm not quite sure, in my humble opinion, allegedly, that Nicole Young is happy with this. I'm not quite sure that she's, cheering and partying it up with her girlfriends. I'm thinking maybe, possibly, that she is not happy with this because this is less than half of what she requested. Okay, thank you for the compliment, Money to Burn. All right, let's see. So Crime Spotter says the total amount, which combines spousal support with the maintenance costs of Nicole's homes in Malibu and Pacific Palisades, is close to $5 million. Thank you for that, Crime Spotter. But again, she was requesting $2 million in spousal support alone. All right. Aisha wants to know, how old is Dr. Dre's children? You know what we'll do? We'll give that a Google. They're over 18, but let's see how old they are exactly. Let's see. Let's see. Okay. It's looking like one is 19 and the other is 21. I think. Okay. Don't quote me on that because I really did not look too far into the children because they weren't relevant as there's no child support. All right. So Star wants to know, can she bring it back into court for more? So any judgment can be appealed. Yes, Star, you can appeal. But whether or not you would actually get, a different result, that's kind of unlikely unless there is what the court calls some change in circumstances. So if somehow she discovers that Dr. Dre had some hidden property that he never disclosed, some hidden money he never disclosed, she can most certainly use that and say, hello, state of California, in the interest of justice, I want my divorce reopened because there is some money and some property here that I did not get my equitable share of. Okay. Crime Spotter wants to know, would she have gotten more if they weren't over 18? So she would not have gotten more in spousal support, but she would have gotten child support. And you know what? I'll say this. I'll say that with that catch-all of anything equitable, perhaps the court could have considered children under 18 and maybe given her a bit more. Perhaps. Okay. And B Buccaneer says he has 7 children in total. Correct. But we are discussing the children that he has with Nicole Young, as those are the only children that would ever be relevant to the divorce. And they're actually over the age of 18. All righty. So we're going to hop into property division. We're going to talk about community property states, which is what California is, and actually speak a little bit about what Crime Spotter mentioned, which is property division and how Nicole Young ended up with a couple of their properties that they shared. So if you have any further questions, feel free to drop them in the chat. I'm going to kind of be taking a look at them as I go into the law again. All right, share screen. Anxiety building for this share screen. And now let's head to the second part of our little cheat sheet. Okay. California divorce and property division laws. Okay. So again, this is my little cheat sheet for you guys. So division of property in a divorce is determined by the state that you are in, right? So, and when I say the state you are in, the state where divorce is filed, okay? California is a community property state. So everything that I'm about to say falls within community property law. Keep in mind that if you are in Louisiana, Arizona, Texas, Washington, Idaho, Nevada, New Mexico, or Wisconsin, everything I'm about to say also applies to you. Okay? So, California Family Code Section 2581 states that the court will presume all property acquired by the couple during the marriage to be community property. So what does that mean, you ask? Why? Allow me. So this means that anything that Dr. Dre purchased before 1996, so anything that he purchased before he married Nicole Young, is not up for division in the divorce because it's not community property. Community property is property that belongs to both spouses and has to be divided equally. Now, the flip side of that is anything that Dr. Dre purchased during the marriage, any property, any asset, is community property and it is up for equal division. Here's what that means from a more practical perspective. Let's say Jane and Jack are married and Jack goes out and buys a $1.2 million home. Jane did not give Jack not even a dollar, you guys, not even a cent, not even a nickel towards this house. But she's married to Jack. And if they decide to divorce, Jack will have to divide that property with her equally. It does not matter that she did not contribute not even a penny to the purchase of the property. Okay, so properties purchased, assets gained, and debts acquired during the marriage are all considered community property. Oh, run that back. And debts acquired. So now, here's the fun part of the convo, right? Because we always talk about money and properties and this and that, but you guys know that property comes with what? Debt. Rarely do you see someone buying property cash, all up front. There's no mortgage payment. That's very rare. So when the court is dividing these assets, they also consider the debt. So here's how that works from a practical perspective. If the home, again, is worth 1.2 million and approximately $500,000 is owed on the mortgage, the court will say that the actual worth of that home is actually approximately 600,000 and some change, right? It's not the full 1.2 million. It's whatever is left after the mortgage is satisfied. So again, let's use an even simpler example. A home is purchased for $100,000. There is still $25,000 left on the mortgage. The actual value of that house in a divorce is $75,000, not $100,000. Make sense? All right. So all of that is considered. Now let's talk about some other debts. Credit card debts, right? So remember that the higher your income is usually the higher realm of credit you have access to, which then means what? Your credit card debts are higher. So for example, when Nipsey Hussle passed away, I think they were saying on one credit card alone, he owed about 50,000 and some change, right? And that was one credit card alone. Now, let's be honest, to the typical person, owing $50,000 on one credit card is quite a bit. But for Nipsey Hussle's income, it was equivalent. So now imagine the amount of credit card debt that Dr. Dre and Nicole Young could have had. They also have to pay all of that debt from the community property before they get to divide anything. Okay? All right. So then community debts are divided equally, as we just discussed. And then the court will split all of the community property equally. A judge will allocate 50% to one spouse and 50% to the other. So whatever properties were owned during the marriage, let's say, for example, there were 4, the court is literally going to say, you get 2 and you get 2, or dispose of all these properties and evenly divide what is left after disposition. Now, here's something I wanted us to mention as well. California does not consider fault-based divorce. So what does that mean? Well, a fault-based divorce is when someone comes into court and says, I'm seeking divorce because of infidelity. This person was unfaithful to me, and that is why I want a divorce. California does not consider that when they're dividing property. They would not say that Nicole Young should receive more spousal support or more than her equitable share of the property because Dr. Dre was unfaithful. Fault-based divorces are not considered in property division. Okay, and as we discussed, property owned prior to the marriage is more than likely separate property. But before we get out of here, you guys know I have to keep you informed, right? There are always exceptions. If you remember nothing else from being here with me, remember that every law, every rule has an exception. Some of them, the only exception is something that we call the interest of justice. But some of them, there is an actual exception. And for this rule, for this community property rule, there is an actual exception. So here it is. If the property is commingled with your spouse, it will become part of the community. So if Dr. Dre purchased something before he married Nicole Young, but he commingles it with Nicole Young, then it's up for grabs in the divorce. How could you possibly commingle something? Well, here's one way, just one way. Commingling could be adding your spouse's name to the title of a house you bought prior to marriage. So, ladies and gentlemen, if you purchase a property before you marry someone and you live in a community property state, you then marry that person and you decide to add them to the title, you cannot turn around and try to argue that it's separate property because it was purchased prior to marriage. You've commingled it by involving them in the home via putting their name on the title. Okay? All righty. So I am going to hop back into the chat. Hello, everyone. Hello, let me see your transcript. Hello, Aisha Stockton. Hello, Keep the Truth. I don't know if I shouted you out already. All right. I see some really good comments here. Okay. So Keep the Truth says, Nicole Young and Dr. Dre have been married for over 20 years, correct? They were shown together in many publications over those years. In essence, she became a public figure. She has the right to ask for support. Well, Keep the Truth, that is a good point to make, right? That she was a part of his image, and thereby she should be awarded some level of support unless and until she remarries, right? Keep the Truth also mentioned the Broderick case. Yes, you guys, if you're on Netflix, check out Dirty John, and it's the Betty Broderick story, I believe. Interesting. And it goes into California property law and property division. Are there any questions about the law that we discussed? So Star wants to know, when you get married, it doesn't automatically become theirs? No. So in a community property state, remember, we're only discussing community property states. In a community property state, anything you purchase before the marriage is yours. Unless, remember the exception, you commingle by doing something such as putting that person's name on the title. Okay? So no, you can purchase in a community property state anything you'd like before your marriage, and it is not up for grabs in a divorce. All right. So any other questions on Dr. Dre? If not, we are going to push right into some shocking new accusations in the R.Kelly case. Okay, so any other questions on Dr. Dre and Dr. Dre's divorce and California property law? Or rather, I shouldn't say that. I should say California marital law. Star says, what's the difference? Wouldn't you have to sell and split what you own together? Right. So you would have to sell and split what you own together. So let's do it this way. Let's go back to our Jane and Jack example. Jack purchased a home before he married Jane. While married to Jane, they purchased 3 other homes. So in total, Jack owns 4 homes, but only 3 of them can actually be split in the divorce. Jane has no right whatsoever at all to the house he bought before he married her. All right. KKC says that's why they say wait before you start adding your spouse to titles and deeds. Yes, that is why they say wait before you start adding your spouse to titles and deeds. And I'm going to say this. In my humble opinion, if you worked your butt off and you purchased it before your marriage, I don't see why you're adding anyone else's name to it. Okay, my humble opinion. Crime Spotter says, are there other states where the split isn't even? Right. So in the other states, they have something called equitable distribution, and it's an entirely different scenario. Okay, but we're not touching that today. All right, Star says she got it now. All right, Star. All right, listen, I knew that we're all, as I'm always telling you guys, super intelligent and well-read. So I know we get on board, pretty swiftly, but there are some of these elements that are a little bit, harder to grasp because they're a little bit more against what common sense would tell you, right? Star also wants to know, do they sell or buy one another out? That depends, Star. Some divorces, they sell. Some divorces, they just divide. It depends on what the parties decide to do and also what the court agrees to, because a lot of times the court will step in and say, this is what you're going to do. Okay? And Tyrell says, unless they commingle. Absolutely, Tyrell. Unless you commingle what you brought into the marriage, or rather, I should say, what you had before the marriage is yours. All right. So we're going to dive into these very interesting new R.Kelly accusations. I mean, well, you know what? Let's just dive into it, and then I'll let you guys tell me what you think from there on out. Share screen, a little less anxiety because I'm sharing a tab and not my entire screen. All right, so we're here on NPR. So you all know that I prefer to get information from the Department of Justice. However, the Department of Justice hasn't released some of these details just yet. They're probably waiting. So in lieu of that, we will discuss what's here on NPR. And NPR is on the list of pretty reliable sources. Okay. All right. So we see a picture here of R. Kelly at a federal trial in Illinois in 2019. Okay. Oh, at a hearing, I should say, rather. Okay. So let's dive in. Federal prosecutors are seeking to have evidence of what they say are more alleged but uncharged crimes committed by R&B singer R. Kelly admitted at his upcoming trial in New York. The allegations include the abuse of blank and blank dating as far back as 1991, the sexual abuse of a 17-year-old male, physical abuse, hush payments, and bribery. Can we take a moment? Can we take a moment to acknowledge that the prosecution is alleging that there are also male victims? Wow. Okay. The New York indictment, which is one of 2 sets of federal charges, which we know on this channel, currently levied against Kelly, was filed in March 2020, which we also know here, and includes 6 alleged victims. The filing submitted by the prosecutors on Friday includes 20 Jane Does. Wow. And 2 John Does. So 2 alleged male victims. In or around December 2006, the government alleges Kelly initiated a sexual relationship with a 17-year-old boy whom he had met at a Chicago McDonald's and directed the boy to have sexual encounters with other people as well. Okay, so let's take a pause here because there's something that I want to mention legally, but also because I want everyone to have a moment for that to sink in. Let it sink in. Now let's dive into the law. So the first question, I'm sure, some of my super chatters like Crime Spotter. And when I say super chatter, that's my term for super on it, super prepared, super on point, right? I'm nerdy and corny. Just bear with me, guys. So here's a Crime Spotter question. Well, Empowered Esquire, how can they talk about alleged but uncharged crimes in court? Well, Crime Spotter, here's your answer. There is a caveat in the law. It is called prior uncharged bad acts. And that caveat says, if the prosecution can establish a pattern, if they can establish that someone is continuously committing the same crime in the exact same way, they can use it in court, even if it's uncharged, even if it's not a conviction. Why? Because the court says, well, that establishes that this defendant has a modus operandi, an MO, a method, a mode, a means by which they continue to commit the same crime. And that should be allowed to be discussed in this court. This is the same caveat they used in Bill Cosby's case when they brought in, I think, 5 or 6 other accusers that Bill Cosby wasn't actually being charged with, but they were allowed to testify during the trial, right? It's the same modus operandi exception. So once more, when the prosecution can establish a pattern, when they can establish that someone has continuously committed a crime in the exact same way over and over again, they can use a past allegation as partial proof of a current allegation, when usually you can't do that. So for example, usually you can't use something that Jack did yesterday to say, oh, well, we know he robbed Jane today. Usually you can't do that. But if Jack is walking up to people as they get off of the 4 train on 161, my New Yorkers know what I'm talking about, and he's always approaching them right as they walk outside of the train station. He's always approaching them from behind. He's always using a knife to their back and then demanding their phone. That is a pattern. And so when the prosecution is charging him for the robbery yesterday, they can bring victims from robberies from years ago that they never even charged him for, because it is a pattern. It is a modus operandi. All right. Diva Divine Light is laughing at 161, right? My New Yorkers get me, right? I've been here since 2015, so I'm a little bit on it. And by the way, yeah, people from New York do not say 161st Street. Okay. We say 161. That's how we do that. All right. Let's continue. That boy introduced Kelly to a second teenage male, John Doe number 2, who was then 16 or 17 years old, with whom Kelly allegedly tried to start a sexual relationship as well. Several years later, Kelly is alleged to have started having sex with this second John Doe, and also forced several of his girlfriends and other sexual partners, including a minor girl, to have sex with this young man. Prosecutors say that Kelly often filmed these incidents. Let's take a moment. So take in what we are hearing. Prosecutors are insinuating, they are alleging that they have video to support these prior actions that they may not necessarily be charging R.Kelly with, but that they want to discuss in court. So they're insinuating that they are not just having people get on the stand and testify to some accusation. They're alleging that they have video that can support the prior victims that they're going to bring up to testify. That is a big deal, everyone. And if you're new here, you may not know, but if you've been around for a second, if you've been with me for a second, you know why. If you've been here for a minute, you know that corroboration is everything. So when you can prove something in more than one way, it's everything, people. It's everything. Because if you just have a victim on the stand, then defense counsel can get up and try to ruin that witness's credibility, try to make that witness look unreliable, unstable, all of the things that you've seen on TV. But when you have video to corroborate witness testimony, wow, you have got a pretty solid case, in my humble opinion. So if in fact if in fact the prosecution does have these videos, they are in the possession of a pretty solid case, everyone. And R. Kelly's defense counsel will really have to be very diligent in defending him against these accusations. Okay, the government is asking the judge to allow video recordings of Kelly physically and verbally abusing two women as evidence at the trial. Well, that may get in and that may not get in. And when I say get in, I'm using lawyer/attorney terms. So, just as every other profession has their slang, we have our slang too. So when we're discussing our evidence, we'll say, oh, well, I'm going to push for this, but I may not get it in, or it may not get in. So that means, will this evidence be allowed in court or not? So here's the argument for this little portion here. These videos of R. Kelly allegedly physically and verbally abusing two women. Here's the thing. Prosecution is going to argue that it's relevant, right? And that it should be allowed in because it speaks to the nature of R. Kelly when he is dealing with women that he interacts with in an intimate manner. But defense counsel is going to argue, Your Honor, we are here to discuss specific incidents of nexual and intimate interaction, as well as specific incidents of alleged human trafficking. So random videos of alleged verbal and physical abuse towards two women is not relevant to what we are here to discuss today. And the only thing it will do is prejudice the jury against my client by having the jury think that he's just some horrible person, when really we don't know what happened before that video started to be recorded. We don't know what happened before the camera started rolling. Okay. So that's Empowered Esquire in her, in my bag, as the kids would say, right? Putting on my devil's advocate hat. Okay. So we know what prosecution is going to say. We know. But that's what defense counsel will more than likely argue, and the judge will ultimately decide. They get into some other allegations, which we are already aware of here, right? We know that they're alleging that he married Aaliyah illegally, allegedly. We also know that they are alleging that there was something about them being forced to marry each other, or rather Aaliyah being forced to marry him so that there could be no testimony against him. We know all of this, right? And they get into some of the allegations that were actually in the docuseries Surviving R. Kelly. So we're familiar with that, right? So I'm going to stop sharing. I'm going to hop back into the chat. Hello, everyone. Let's see. Are there any questions about these new R. Kelly accusations? I'm not going to lie, y'all. I was blown away. Oh, my Southern came out. Y'all, like I said, I've only been up north since 2015, so bear with me. I was blown away. I had heard rumors, and rumors are just rumors. I had heard rumors about male victims, but it never really entered my mind. So when I read that it was said on the record in court, I thought, wow, there's some validity to that, because no prosecutor is going to get on the record in court and, risk their license saying they have evidence and witnesses they don't actually have. So, man, I'm blown away. I'm blown away by the allegation of male victims, and it adds to some already very serious allegations. So Star is asking, another person was saying, if they can prove he wasn't an enterprise, the case will fall apart. What do you think? Well, a large part of the New York indictment is criminal enterprise, racketeering. So yes, the prosecution has to prove that it was a criminal enterprise, that it was, a kind of I lost my word, you guys. A joined effort, right? Collective effort. There you go. However, remember that when we're talking about criminal enterprise and things like that, it doesn't require all of these different levels of communication, right? Something as simple as R. Kelly sent a text to someone, allegedly, telling that person to give Jane Doe number 3 money and tell her to be quiet. That's a criminal enterprise, right? Because now the two of them are tampering with a witness together. Okay. Let's see. Take R. Kelly is saying that he believes they already proved criminal enterprise with Arlene and McDavid. Okay. So I am looking to see. Oh, Diva Divine Light says, is this true evidence or is the government trying to scare him? So let me speak to that. If the prosecution got on the record, and insinuated and stated that they have evidence that they do not actually have, they can have their law license taken away. You can be disbarred for saying you have evidence that you do not have. So if the prosecution got on the record and said, we have these witnesses, we want them to testify, we have these videos, we want them to be allowed in, we want them to be deemed admissible, then they should be making an accurate representation. Because if they are not, that's big time trouble for them. All right, I'm back in the chat. Take R. Kelly. I'm so sorry. I am so sorry. I apologize. The lovely, elegant Miss Take R. Kelly. And please, if I ever said anything otherwise, do forgive me. I will remember from here on out. Let's see. I don't see any other questions in the chat. So you guys know I'm usually on here for about an hour. So we are going to wrap it up if I don't see any other questions. So I'll do my fake Jeopardy music in the meantime. Do 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 do. Oh, I see a question. Crime Spotter says, are there other people he can say corrupted in order to run the enterprise, cops, etc.? Interesting. So I think Crime Spotter is asking, could R. Kelly implicate other defendants? He could, but unless he's looking for some type of plea deal, that does him no good. So it really does him no good to, because in essence, he would be saying, I have an even larger criminal enterprise than you thought. Yeah, that's not smart. Diva says, Miss Esquire, can you go over this on my platform? Diva, I have told you I will come back anytime you like. You have my number. You got my number. Don't act like you're a stranger. B Buccaneer says, can you give us a ballpark figure as to how much the R. Kelly defense will cost? Oh, wow. I could not. He has, I think, 3 or 4 attorneys. They're all high-powered attorneys. Listen, I couldn't even begin. I could not even begin. But I will tell you this. An attorney that is not high-powered for a defendant that is not notable, right? So a regular average Joe who's a criminal defendant could spend in this type of case upwards of $100,000 on an attorney. So if your average Joe could spend upwards of $100K on one attorney, that should give you some insight into how much R. Kelly could be spending for 4 or 5, right? All righty. Crime Spotter wants to know, does a plea deal even do him any good at this point? It really could. It could, Crime Spotter, because he's facing potentially the rest of his life in prison. So perhaps he could cut a deal that is maybe, 7 to 10, 10 to 15-ish, and some probation, some restitution. That could do him some good, but I don't think that he's going to do that, in my humble opinion, as I always say. All right. Keep the Truth wanted to ask about, that's for Diva Divine Light. That's not for me. Thank you for the compliment. Let me see your transcript. Well, you guys, I'm out of here. If you're catching this on the replay, hello, how are you? And tell me, what say you, people in the replay? Do you think that Nicole Young was granted a fair and reasonable divorce settlement? And what do you think about these new R. Kelly accusations? Let me know. For those of you who are here in the chat, thank you for joining me. As I always say, life lessons through a legal lens. And so what did we learn today? Well, we learned that if you're in a community property state, beware of commingling. See you later.